Asking, how are you?
Loving Life, the incredible Fred Green. You're definitely someone that a lot of people hold a lot of respect for. And so I'm interested to see where this goes, and we'll be able to get some good information out.
Sounds good.
Well, this is your first time over at TNJ Radio. So what we'll do is we'll actually just start from the beginning. Now, you grew up in Pittsburgh?
Yes, kind of, sort of. Well, I mean, I guess I did. I'm actually originally from Los Angeles, California, but I did relocate to live with my father in Pittsburgh, and spent my middle school and high school years in Pittsburgh. Yes.
Okay. So how much do you really remember from those years in LA?
LA was fun. Kind of, sort of. I mean, so it was obviously it was a tragedy. My mother actually had lupus, so she actually ended up passing away. But growing up there, going to school there for a little while was, you remember some things, but you don't remember a lot of things. But and obviously because of that tragic situation, I guess those memories stuck with me to enable me to, you know, uh, look at my life with my mother and remember her. And then, then after that, we relocated to Pittsburgh.
Okay. And sorry to hear about that. Condolences. I know it was a long time ago, but your mother's still your mother.
Absolutely.
Your dad, what kind of dad was he?
Uh, well, my father was one of those people who was there physically, but not there. Uh, what I say? So when I say physically, I mean he showed up. He bought me toys, things like that. But he really didn't play an instrumental part in my life. He was one of those always on the run, doing things that most fathers wouldn't be proud of, or most kids wouldn't be proud of. But so I love him. Still love him. Still have a relationship with him. But he never really played I would say a mentoring part of my life, where he didn't help mold me, if that kind of makes sense.
Unfortunately, that does end up being the situation a lot of times. Now, was your father a single parent raising you, or did he have a wife?
Well, no, actually, my father didn't raise me. My father, when we relocated to Pittsburgh, my grandmother took the reins, and she uh, did everything. She raised me. She sent me to um, private schools. So I did do. So she sent me to private schools up by Oakland with a lot of medical professionals. Like whatever the school I went to, I know it. Forgive me. It's been so long. I don't even remember the name of it. But I went there a couple years, and it was a private school. And then from there, I went to St. Benedict the Moor on the Hill District, and then I went to North Catholic for high school.
Okay. Now, your grandmother, what kind of profession was she into?
Actually, my grandmother was a crossing guard, and so then she actually, I believe she injured her back maybe when she was around 45, 50, and went on disability, and she never worked again. Uh, so needless to say, she was always around, so it didn't leave much room for me to get into a lot of trouble, although I got into trouble. But she was always around, always there, um, always guiding me, and my protector.
Okay. Middle school, you said, was this around the 80s, the 90s?
That was the 80s. I think also let me see. So I graduated eighth grade in 89. Yes. So yes, 80s.
I could
Woo! Seems
grow up.
like forever ago.
Now, for those who don't know about the Hill District, because I don't want to gloss over that, tell the viewers about what you know about the Hill District and things that they should know.
The Hill District is I would say it is. Well, I know it's one of the toughest places to grow up in the city of Pittsburgh. Um, I grew up around a lot of drugs, a lot of gang violence, and you always had to watch your back. So it was very tough. It was a lot of shootings. Until this day, still, every time I go home, uh, it's the same thing. A lot of people shooting, a lot of killings in the Hill District as well. Projects. So it was tough, but you persevere. I mean, I think it takes a special person to, and there's a lot of people that I know, quite a few that got out. I did lose a lot of friends growing up, a lot of acquaintances as well. People I grew up with, they either are locked up now, or most of them have passed away. So yeah, I lost a lot of my friends that I used to hang out with, are deceased now as well. So um, just happy that I was able to have someone in my corner like my grandmother to get out of that environment.
Okay. So with her being around and she's on disability, you said that she was pretty much on top of everything, right?
Yes.
What were some of the things that she kept you involved in to keep you out of trouble?
You know what? I don't think there was, looking hindsight 2020, looking at the situation, because my grandmother was very, I would say, mean, very strict, and she never attended anything that I did either. Like, she didn't go to any concerts that I was in. When I used to play the drums in middle school as well, she didn't do it. She didn't go to anything. She didn't attend anything. I used to play baseball down at Ammons Recreational Center, and she never came to anything. But so I just tried to keep myself busy actually, she early on, I used to draw a lot, right? So for me, I was drawing whatever I could see, like cartoons and making up stuff, and so she saw that, and I guess she fostered that by sending me to a program, an architectural program. So early on, that was my first exposure to something outside of sports. A lot of times kids are just exposed to, especially in the inner city, they're just exposed to sports. But I was exposed to architecture. So she put me in that program, which was pretty cool. Um, I don't know if you want to get into that. That's a different story that I can take it to another level, where uh, it was an interesting story as well. So I guess I'll talk about that a little later. But so that she actually, I stayed busy with sports. I stayed busy. Well, we're talking middle school here, so um, she allowed me to go out and hang out with my friends. But I mean, 6 p.m. come, you hear a call out of the window, telling me to come in for dinner. So that's one thing we did. We ate as a family. Obviously, it was just herself and myself, but every day she cooked dinner, and I had to come in at 6 to eat dinner, and then I was allowed to go back outside and do whatever. But she tried to make sure I stayed in the vicinity of my neighborhood, although I did venture out, and like I said, and got around some guys who weren't good influences, but we persevered.
Okay. Now, you got me pretty intrigued. What happened with the architecture?
It's a shame that, but it's the same. It's something that we just have to discuss. Obviously the elephant always in the room is race, right? And so, being an African American, I was probably 13 at the time, and going to downtown Pittsburgh at an event or a program where I'm the only African American there. Um, and trying to learn something, and being intrigued and asking questions. Because I was intrigued. I was something I really wanted to do. I love to draw. I'd see structures around the city, and I was amazed at how they were built and constructed. And and that's something I wanted to get into. However, the teacher, um, I'll never forget. He came to me and he was like, "This is something that you probably wouldn't do good at." So, and as a kid, that wouldn't bother me as an adult because we know better, right? We know we dream, we have aspirations. We're not going to let anybody deter us from our goals. But as a 13-year-old kid, a minority from the inner city, from the projects, the housing projects, it was tough and it crushed me. And I said, oh man, maybe I'm not good enough to be an architect. So who knows where my life would have been? But ever since that day, I never thought about becoming an architect, all based off of what he told me.
Interesting. And you're an educator,
Yes.
and dealing with children, how has that affected your approach with how you deal with them?
Oh, it definitely approached me. Words hurt. You know the saying, what sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt. Absolutely, they hurt. You know, no matter what people say. I mean, people can mask the pain, but in actuality, words do hurt, and so you have to be careful what you say to anybody, whether it's in a relationship. You can never take something back, right? So, especially in the school system. So, I try to be as positive as possible, uplifting, right? To show kids that they can make it no matter their circumstances. I grew up in the same circumstances as you, and I was able to make it as well. So, and come out of that situation. So, absolutely. I mean, I would never, I've heard situations where educators, and even you hear, if you listen to a lot of rappers, one of the biggest gripes in their songs when they talk about their teachers, or their teachers said they would never amount to anything. I can't understand how a teacher would say that to a child, no matter how much of a headache that child is. I've taught plenty of kids who I probably would thought that, man, I don't know about this one right here. However, you never say it. You always uplift, and then whatever they're good at or trying to become good at, you encourage it, right? Because that's their dreams, and you don't want to kill anybody's dreams.
So you're a father right now,
Yes,
3 children, right?
correct.
How have all of these experiences, whether from the different things with your parents, whether from the different things with different teachers, how have these affected how you are as a father today?
Good question. It has definitely taught me a lot. I'll say it has taught me that to for one, not to be like my father, right? I think some of the challenges of becoming a father are, one, not for at least for me, well, not knowing if a police officer is going to harm my son for no reason. My son is 25 now; he just turned 25 last week, and that's something we need to, that I think all fathers are, and mothers, right, are afraid of, right. Uh, Something else would be how it affected me would be, sometimes you have a feeling like you're a failure, right? So what I mean by that is, you know, I'm divorced, right? So I left my spouse, right? So, feeling like you're a failure because you're not in a two-parent household, um, that could be detrimental as a father as well. Um, Also, like feeling that you're failing God, so that you feel that you're not worthy enough to be a father, right? Um, and so those things right there have enabled me to really think about why I am the way I, you know, how to become a better person. Like, you know, I think you learn from your situations, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from watching other people as well. Like I see how, you know, like I said earlier, like how my father he was actually there. He would come around, but he never did anything with me. So being more intentional, right? So being more intentional to be in my son's life. You know, my son, I played baseball, like I said, my whole life. My son played baseball, but I was there. I was at the batting cages with him every day. I hired uh, somebody who used to play professional baseball to train him, you know, 3 times a week. And even I was, because I was in a different state, I actually was living in Arizona at the time. I actually moved back to Virginia, where he is, to make sure that I was an integral part of his life when he started high school. So yeah, you're being more intentional, you know, because you know men are supposed to be providers, right? So um, sometimes that means not being able to be there physically as you want to be, and and that could be challenging as well, right? Because you want to do the things with the child, but you have obligations. You have to make sure there's food on the table. You have to make sure that the mortgage is paid, right? And so sometimes that means you're not there physically. So being more intentional in your mind and say, you know what, I need to take a break so I can spend more time with my child, even though the end game is, you know, to make sure they're okay. You still have to be present in their life. Also, I look at my family, even my grandmother as well as my father. They're not good communicators. So guess what? I'm not a good communicator, right? So even though I think I'm a good communicator, when actuality, when you talk or speak to good communicators, they're like, you know what, Fred, you're really not a good communicator. So becoming a good communicator, that could be that was a challenge for me as well. In the beginning, you know, you want to connect with kids, you know, since you know you didn't connect with your father, right, per se.
Now, someone from your background who has made these type of strides within the financial industry, I would have thought, if I didn't know you, I would have thought you came from a family of bankers or something of the sort, or a family of insurance agents or financial advisors, something of the sort. But what are some of the early experiences that you remember regarding the stock market and financial information?
You know, I hear that all the time when I talk to people, when people ask about my upbringing and my family, right? And they're like, "Well, how did you like succeed? How did you get out of that environment? What made you choose this profession?" And you know, or I don't, I honestly don't have an answer for that. Like, I really believe that sometimes you just, I don't know, man. I look at it as I've always wanted more for myself, and I was a huge dreamer, right? So, not looking at my circumstances, I didn't see my circumstances. I didn't see myself staying in my circumstances. So I made that decision. I drew that line in the sand to get out of my circumstances. As far as the market, I started looking at the market my sophomore year in high school. Now, you know, just to give you a little background about North Catholic. North Catholic at the time was it's on Troy Hill, which is on the north side. Uh, Huge Italian population, Polish population. So, um, you know, a lot of racism during that time. You know, like I said, that was 1989 to 93. Um, I'm not sure if Pittsburgh is still as racist as it used to be, but it was very racist back then. And so 700 students, 13 minorities, uh, and only 2 in my class, right? So it was tough, but I always felt I had to be better than them. And so I strive to do a better job and get better grades on tests and on work. just for that purpose at all. So I had a teacher who was really, he used to trade, right? And he would come in and talk about how he made $200 and $300 that day. And I was like, wow. So obviously, you know, coming from inner city, people make fast money in different ways. I was one who didn't want to go that way. I didn't want to sell drugs. I saw a lot of my friends going to jail. I said, I don't want to do that. And so I saw this as an opportunity. I said, wow, this is something you can make some money. So, you know, I was intrigued. I was like, tell me more about it. Right. So he started, you know, after school, I would go after school and in his class, and he would show me, you know, ticker tapes and different stocks that were out. And I was like, well, these are companies that most people shop at the mall. And he was like, yeah. And so that actually piqued my interest and got me into learning more about the stock market. I think I fostered it more in college. I went to Virginia State University, which is also a prestigious Black school, HBCU. And your junior year is when you really dive into your major. So I have an economics degree, I have a minor in finance, and my professor, Dr. Trainer, I'll never forget him. He used to be a stockbroker. So my investment class, I mean, I was all in. I was like researching options and stocks and futures and bonds and things like that. And I just got really excited. And so that's what fostered from high school, kind of being intrigued and then kind of diving into the research. As junior, I was 19, 20 year old. And then eventually got into the game.
Okay. So for those of us that don't know, because you had said major in economics
Yes.
and minor in finance, what
Yes.
does that mean? What's the difference?
Well, economics looks at the overall the state of the economy. You know, there's micro, macro, right? So it's looking at supply versus demand, right? So if you have, I don't know, if you want to sell guitars, right? And there's a shortage in the strings across the United States or across the world, right? Well, there's not a lot of supply, but there's a huge demand because a lot of people per se wants to buy a guitar. So that's the economic side of it. Finances just deals with money, right? So the buying of selling of a commodity, you know, just dealing with everyday banking stuff and things of that nature.
Okay. So now, as you're there and you're in this finance minor, how did that impact the way that you looked at money?
Well, I've always been a saver. I don't even know where that came from. I've always been someone who valued the dollar. So especially learning about the banking systems and interest rates and how money can accumulate or what I say compound, right? Which means if you put $1,000 in and you're getting interest on it, you know, say 10%, well, 10% of 1,000 is 100, right? So you're getting $100 extra, right? So I saw that anytime I have something that makes me more money without doing anything, that's a good thing. So that's what intrigued me about finances in general, having your money work for you, right? And so learned a lot about that, learned a lot about money management, learned a lot about budgeting, on how to not overexpend, how to live off of 10% of your income, all kind of stuff, man. So it was fun, it was cool, it was rewarding. You know, a lot of times people, at least in my experience from being an educator, a lot of kids go to schools and get into majors just to say they went to college, or they go into schools, they major in stuff that they're really not interested in. And that's the whole point. The whole point of college is to be excited about learning something that's you're going to get into over those next 4 years that's you can have fun with and make money, make a living and make an earning, right? Make an earning and make a living, doing something that you love to do.
Okay, that's not a bad way to go. Now, before we get into more of your professional experience while you were in college, I believe you had a pretty interesting nickname.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, they used to call me Flex, and actually it started off in high school. So they used to. So like I said, I used to play baseball and used to work out with all the football players. And I used to always. I started off working out when I was 16. So muscle mass came on pretty strong, and so I used to always be in the mirror in the gym, just flexing my muscles, posing and stuff like that. And so a couple of guys deemed me, we're gonna start calling you Flex because you always in the mirror flexing. And then so that carried on to college, and even till this day, it's funny. I'll talk to my college buddies now. We've been out of school for 20, 25 plus years, and they don't even call me Fred. They call me Flex still. So it's funny every time I hear it because I'm like I'm like almost a senior citizen. You still call me Flex.
But whenever you're 60, hopefully the flex is still flexible.
Hopefully, all these aches and pains I have now, man. It's getting old is not fun.
When you got out of college, what was your first step on the career path?
Wow, man. So it's interesting. So I had opportunities to get into insurance. So I had an internship up in Hartford, Connecticut. Funny story too, man. Well, not really funny. So this is one of those stories where, so they gathered a crew, or I'll say a group of, I don't want to say elite because I don't like to brag on myself or anything like that, but kids who had a 3.5 or above GPA from HBCUs across the country, and it was internship, and it was 1996, I believe, and so so they was teaching us about the insurance game. I didn't know what I wanted. I knew I wanted to. I already knew I wanted to be a stockbroker, but when you have an opportunity to learn about new things, you just never know. Like maybe this is something. This is maybe an avenue I might want to go to, right? So there's like maybe 15, 20 of us, and so it's a co-ed dorm, so we're partying, we're learning, obviously going to classes during the day, and we're having fun. We new people, we don't know these people, and so then the test comes, and I'm like, man, I should probably study, and nobody's studying. And I'm like, well, they're not studying, I'm not going to study. We're just going, this test can't be that difficult. So the next day comes, we all take the test. I am the only one who failed the test. So, I'm feeling some type of way because I'm not used to being that person, right? So they pulled me aside and says, hey, Fred, this can't happen again, or we're going to be forced to let you go. And I'm like, wow, I'm supposed to be here for the whole summer. I failed one test and they're talking about letting me go. Then the light bulb went off. So I realized that there's two types of people in education, right? Well, not the two types of, what is different types of learning styles? The thing that really resonated with me was this. Some people are just naturally smart and don't need to study. I'm not one of those people. I'm the person who needs to study and study and study, and then I can ace the test. So I realized that real quick that I can't do what other people are doing because that's not my learning style. I don't retain information like that. So needless to say that I didn't fail another test. But here's the thing that separated me from everybody else. Everybody had different internships with different companies, right? With Cigna, Aetna, the Hartford, all these insurance companies. I was the only one, for one, who met the CEO of the company, and he took a liking to him. He took me out to lunch and everything like that. We're still connected to this day. And secondly, I was the only one out of all of them that got offered a job, because I am a networker, right? So I like to network with people. Who do I need to know to meet this person and that? And they were just book smart people. So I'm not saying go ahead and fail a test, but I mean utilize your strengths, right? So for me, I just utilize my strengths, whereas I was able to get that job if I wanted it. I didn't take it because, obviously I wanted to be a broker. I had an opportunity to be a stockbroker, so I moved up to Northern Virginia right after college, and I had to study for what is called the Series 7 test, right? That is this test to get you to become a licensed stockbroker. So as I'm studying, and I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday about people not taking advantage, or people not really caring about their job. The difference between someone, like if you go to McDonald's, the customer service is completely different from Chick-fil-A customer service, right? So I had that mentality, and I share this all the time. I used to share this back in the day as well, is that no matter what job you have, you need to be the best at it, right? Because knowing that it's not your end result, right? That is not your stopping point, right? That's not the finish line, right? So I was working at Ritz Camera at Pentagon City Mall, making $8 an hour, studying for the Series 7. I lived in a house right across the street with 4 other people. They were recently graduates from Randolph-Macon College. I didn't know any of these guys. I just rented out a room. It was cheap, and I made it happen. I sold a lot of $300-$400 cameras, and people didn't understand why, because I studied the industry. I studied cameras. People would come in there for a $30 camera or a $100 camera, and I upsell them to a $400 camera. Why? Because it wasn't my end result. And I knew that if I was to be successful in anything in life, I needed to treat this like this is my $1 million opportunity. So that's why I say, no matter what it is you're doing, if you're at McDonald's, be the best burger flipper, right? If you're whatever you're doing, just be the best at it, because the energy in the universe will conspire to what you want to be in the future. Right. So I was able to I failed the Series 7 test the first time. So I was devastated. And if you fail the test, you get fired. So I didn't have a job. So I just hit the pavement, put my resumes out there. I knew the end result. I know what I wanted to be. And then I landed a position at the second largest brokerage firm in the country at the time, and was able to retake the Series 7, pass it, and that birthed my career as a broker. Was challenging in the beginning because I was the only African American at that firm. A lot of racism, even in corporate America as well, subliminal messages, and some outright disrespect. But you take the punches, you move with it, knowing that my ultimate goal was to become successful for myself and to have my clients be successful as well.
Okay. So while you're at this brokerage firm, and you said it's the second largest in America at the time,
Yes.
what were some of the highs? What were some of the things that you were able to take from your experience there?
Well, I had a great mentor. My mentor was at the time making about $750,000 a year. We actually formed a partnership because he saw value in myself, right? Which really meant he just saw an opportunity for a sharp African American man to bring on some African American clients. let's be real, right? I know my role and stuff, right? So I was able to connect with him and work some things out with him, become a partnership. It was 3 of us, and we just tackled it. We just hit the ground running, started doing some fee-based management. So what I mean by that is, back then, you would probably, I think it was like $150 per transaction. So if you wanted to buy, say, Microsoft stock, and the stock is, say, $100 a share, you would have to pay me, the broker, a transaction fee of $150 when you bought that stock. So that was how it was. Nowadays, you have Robinhood, you have E-Trade, Charles Schwab. You don't pay but pennies on the dollar, but that's how it was when I was started. And we saw, I want to say like to me, it was like divine intervention, because we saw that that's not going to happen for long. People are not going to continue to pay these type of prices. And so we started doing fee-based management, meaning that if you have a portfolio of $100,000, you would pay me 5% to manage your portfolio. And so we started getting into that. It was fun, man. That was a fun time, especially because that was like the .com era when I was a broker, right? So you had companies like DoubleClick. I mean, I recommended this to every broker in the firm, and they're like, Fred, that's not going to do anything. You need to start, looking at, Microsoft and Apple and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, DoubleClick is going to be it. I'm telling you. And it was a gem. It made my clients hundreds of thousands of dollars within a 60-day period. I mean, that stock went from 40 to 80 within a matter of weeks. Then it went to like 120. Then it split, which means it went from 120 to 60. So I don't want to get technical with what that means, but all that means is you have more shares. And if it continues to go up, now you doubled your money, right? So then when it went to 60, it went up to 100. And, people just made tons of money. A lot of my friends made a lot of money as well. So that was fun times. All right. So, tech was big. Like I said, Microsoft, Apple, Google got started in 2004. Their IPO came out in 2004. So that was huge. Some of the lows, like I talked about, dealing with the racism, it was just a lot. It was a lot, especially for a young, because I was like 22, right? So it was a lot. I'd have situations where guys would like say, "Hey, Fred, go grab me some chicken," stuff like that, or it was just a lot of blatant racism. No one said the N-word or anything like that, but it was just like a lot of just people not really wanting me there. So I had to prove myself. I had to dress the part. I started wearing bow ties. Try to distinguish myself. I stayed later. I worked 12-hour days, not because I had to, because I wanted to be better than the next man. So that was a low point, because you want to be considered an equal, right? You want to be considered a peer, and to know that no matter how much money you bring in, because I brought in $50 million in assets. So I brought in a lot of money for that company, and for them to, not all of them, right? Not the managers, but, just your peers, some of the things they would say was hurtful. The biggest low, I'll say, is 2008, right? The market crashed. I mean, the Dow fell like 700 plus points in, I want to say, September of 2008. I'll never forget that. Yeah, I know it was September. And, a couple things, it was like a trickling down effect, right? So you had Lehman Brothers, they filed for bankruptcy. They were huge at the time. AIG, which is the largest insurance company out there, they ran out of cash, and the Federal Reserve, had to bail them out. Then the biggest thing, I guess, what really set the market in a tumble was when Congress rejected the bank bailout bill. So that was huge in itself as well. So those are some of my highs and lows.
How did you transition out of that period?
Well, from there, I got, so one of my clients, right? So one of my clients, he had not given, but he had invested a huge amount of money. And I made him some money. Well, I made him like 25% return on his money and stuff. And he was like, "Man, you're sharp. I want you to look at some, an opportunity." And at the time, I wasn't interested. I was not really interested in looking at any other opportunities at all, because I was focused, right? So, but I did understand passive income. I did understand multiple streams of income as well. But I think I was too young at the time mentally to to take my focus off the main thing, right? So, so he would talk to me for months and months and months, not all the time, just like once every 3-4 months. Hey, I want you to come into this meeting. I have something I want to show you. You may or may not be interested in it. Yeah. So eventually, because I said, you know what, Fred, he's a client. He's been consistent. He's bringing me business. He's bringing me other investors as well. Let me at least take a look at what he has to say, what he has to offer. So I was able to. So I went to a meeting and I saw the presentation. It was about 45-minute presentation, and it just made sense. The light bulb went off. It made sense financially. It made sense. I said, wow, I could do this. I believe in the product, and let's see where it goes. Obviously I didn't walk away at that, immediately, but it was one of those situations where I was able to maximize, my income flow, right? My passive income. I think my first month I did like $4,000 and part-time, and I was like, wow, that's some really good money. And then it doubled, and so it made me have an opportunity to say, wow, maybe working 80 hours a week is not what I want to do. And so we transitioned out of being a broker to that. It was a multi-level marketing company, which, a lot of people frown upon and stuff like that, but it just made sense for me, right? And it made dollars as well. So if it makes sense and dollars, it is just a no-brainer.
What were some of the things that you gained from that period of time?
Well, that period of time was amazing for me because it for one, it made me come out of my shell, right? I went from, I wouldn't say being from an introvert to an extrovert, but I went from an introvert to an omnivert, right? Where I could switch. It made me become a better salesman as well, because I could talk to people all day long about a stock because they know it's real. They know the company that I work for is real. It's a large company. Your company's publicly traded. All of those things. But when you're trying to market something that people don't understand or believe in, or it's not the norm, right? Then it can be challenging. So, and it made me become a better leader. Prior to me being in that industry, I'd never really read a book unless it was dealing with stocks. So I'm able to read a lot of leadership books, a lot of books that help you, that help your mindset. A lot of mindset books, a lot of books that make you dream. Like to become more successful, or how to become more successful, or the mindset you have to have. So I learned a lot of information, and that I'm forever grateful for that molded me to who the person I am today.
Okay. So now you have these multiple things going on. You're an educator, business owner, motivational speaker, an author. How did, before we go into the part of the author, as an education is something that I definitely appreciate, as well as a lot of people respect educators, especially for what they do, at least the ones who do. What made you decide to get into education?
Well, I kind of got into education by accident. I was, like I said, when the market crashed, right, and I officially got out of that industry. I needed to do something, and I was actually dating someone who was an educator, and they were like, "You'd be great," and I was like, I've always wanted to. I've been mentoring kids for years. In my entire life, I've been mentoring kids, and I was a part of a few programs that was able to help some kids get out of their situation from there, and become, they get your diplomas or their GEDs and stuff like that. So So I've always been interested in it. I love math, right? So I said, why not? Like the mentor loved math, 2 M's, right? So why not get into it? But I didn't want to go full fledged into it. So I said, you know what? Let me see, right? Because I've like you said, I've done some motivational speaking. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I would say I can command an audience, right? But an adult audience is different from a child audience, right? So I said, what better way to kind of get into that? Will put my foot in the water, right? Or put a toe in, I'll say, than becoming a substitute teacher, right? So I substituted. Now the city that I taught in is, it's kind of like the Hill District, Pittsburgh City, right? It's in New Jersey, and inner city as well. And so when kids see I'm sure even when I was a child, when I saw a substitute teacher, I said, "Whoa, it's fun! It's time to have fun, right? We're not going to listen to this person, and we're going to do what we want to do." So I was able to command the audience, right? Those students. Not only that, I was able to get them to do work, all right? And I did that for, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 months, and then I got permanently hired because I did such a great job, keeping kids in line. And so that would birth, my education piece career. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay. And I do remember those times of the substitute teacher. That's when we thought we were going to throw paper balls and just horse around.
Absolutely.
And to have someone actually take that serious, it shows that, just like you had said, whatever you want to do, you want to be best at it. But the current state of education, it's interesting. I was interested to know what is your take on the current state of education?
I think overall our education is failing for a number of reasons. One, the quality of education, right? There's no resources. Now, obviously, when I say in general, I'm not talking about your private schools. I'm not talking about your schools in districts where they're affluent, right? I'm talking about middle class Americans, impoverished cities, right? So there's a lack of resources, right? So technology is non-existent. A lot of these kids don't have Chromebooks, iPads. They don't have smart boards, right? You'd be surprised. The conditions for learning are not good. I mean, if you're in a building that's 70 plus years old, with no air conditioning, and it's a 90-degree day for 4 days in a row, who wants to sit in that class and learn, right? So poor quality conditions. Number two, I would say budget, right? So your budget for education, they don't allocate a lot of money for the right things for education. So that is huge. I would think that they would have more opportunities for kids. When I talk about budget, like, so let's get these career driven professions to come in and speak to these kids so they can think about more than just sports, right? They can think about being doctors, lawyers. Kids say they want to be this, they want to be that, but they just say that because it's the cool thing to say, right? They have no exposure, and exposure is everything to a child. Like I said, for me, I would have never known about architecture if I wasn't exposed to it, right? So I try to get my students exposed to everything. I had a young lady who wanted to be a social worker, where there weren't any programs in New Jersey for middle school students, and so I found one in Philadelphia, and we got her in that, right? So I try to go above and beyond my call of duties, so to say, right, so to speak. But another state. I mean, the reason why I think education fails as well is, affordability, or what I say, knowledge of parents, right? So what I mean about affordability, I'm saying, like, a lot of things are outpriced. So, case in point, if I want my child to be a doctor, and I want them to go to a summer program that's like 2 weeks long where they can shadow a doctor. Now, there are programs like this, right? As a high school student, that program is $8,000 on up. And the average person doesn't have $8,000 for a 2 week program, right? But the affluent people do. And so that's what separates, that's what I call like class separation, right? Separating our classes, but that's a whole nother story. um, Classism, right? So, we're priced out of stuff, right? And so affordability, college is expensive as well. So, a lot of kids aren't going because they're looking at it as money. It's too much money. And the reason I said knowledge of parents, because that intertwines, right? So it's too much money, but parents don't know about opportunities that are out there, or don't know how to fill out financial aid, right? Don't know how to find grants. And so that's another thing that I do as well as an educator. Even though I teach middle school, when I get my students get to high school, when they get to their junior year, I always tell them to, keep in contact with me. I'm going to help you get scholarships. I want to help you get grants. I'm going to work with your parents to fill out the financial aid form, things of that nature, right? So yeah, knowledge of parent, they don't have the knowledge to know what to do, and then the affordability piece is wild as well. Um, the dropout rate is huge for students. Uh, a lot of kids that I see as far as with education, because they place a high, social media has been social media. I hate to say hip hop, but they see a lot of rappers and their lifestyles, and you see social media, and you think that everybody's living this glamorous life, and some are, right? But they don't realize that some of the stuff that these rappers have are rented. They rent Lamborghinis, they rent G-Wagons, things of that nature. Not to say they don't have money, right? But that's all that kids dream for, right? So they're like, well, I don't need school, you know. When am I going to learn about y equal mx plus b, right? Which is a term in math, right? So I'm just going to drop out and become a rapper, or become whatever. I'm going to do this, and so you know that fails because of that situation right there. And then the last thing I would say would be teacher shortage. There's a lot of schools that don't have adequate teachers in the building, especially in the inner city. They can't fill these positions. And so overall, man, our system is failing, and that's how I feel about the state of our education.
Okay. Now, looking at high school and middle school, where would you put parent involvement in there as far as towards helping for education?
It's huge. It's huge. A lot of people look at me and say, because I'm what you call a tiger dad, right? I am. I don't just let the teacher raise my kids. So to become elite, right? You have to do above and beyond, right? You have to really be involved and engaged in your child's education. If that means that they read good, but I think they can do a little bit better, then I'm gonna put them in a program like a Kumon, right? Or something like that, right? So where they can get better understanding. Um, if their math is good but not great, then I'm gonna put them in a mathnasium, or a different program. I'm going to put my kids in program to succeed. So I think parental involvement is huge. Being not just involved in the school and going to parent teachers conferences, but getting involved in their education life, finding programs out there that they can benefit, not relying on the school system to say, to have a career day. Just exposing them, working your connections. If you have a colleague or a friend who's a nurse, who's a mechanic, you know, having your child shadow that person to see if this is something that interests them. getting them exposed to so many different things. Even YouTube. I have my daughters right now, my 7 and my 4-year-old. I have two. We watch YouTube videos on different careers, and I say, does that interest you? Right? Well, what about that interests you? Right? Asking qualifying questions, talking to your kids, just every day about everything, whether it's politics, whether it's um, career-driven stuff, whether it's, my daughters know all about the election, at 7, right? So you just have to really expose them and not be afraid to foster their learning, right? Have healthy debates. I even have debates with my 7-year-old, right? Where I'm like, I'll tell her something like, this dinosaur was a part of the whatever was, AD, or, I'll say something like that. And it's her job to defend her position on why she feels that it wasn't, right? So I'm triggering those brain to her brain to think outside the box at an early age, so that when she gets to middle school, high school, and into Harvard, she won't have to drop out or feel like it's overwhelming, because this is something we've been doing since she was in the 2nd grade or 1st grade.
Now, you have a interesting book, and I wanted to talk about that because right now, before we even go into the title, it's a different time. People can go from their phones, Robinhood, I don't know if E-Trade is still there, Webull, all these different things. I guess at this point, you ended up, what made you decide to write that book?
Well, I've always wanted to write a book about investing. I didn't know how. And especially during COVID, a lot of people were asking me advice, asking me tips, like, hey, I know you used to be a broker. Can you give me a tip on this? Why this? What does this mean? I said, you know what? I'm just going to start jotting down some ideas. And right before COVID and stuff. And so it took me about 11 months to a year to write it. And that's how the thought process came up. And then you start seeing all this stuff on Robinhood. And so actually my book came out at the perfect time, because the exposure was out there. Like, a lot of people the buzz was out there talking about investing. And even still, a lot of people, even though they have access to, we all have access to Google and things of that nature, a lot of the definitions and stuff that you hear, a lot of the technical jargon, people still don't understand. And so I felt it was my duty, right, to I don't want to use the word dumb it down, but to make it more user friendly, right? So that people can say, oh, this is what this is. Oh, now I get it, by giving examples in my book about how what things really mean. So yeah, that's why I started.
Okay. And when someone ends up reading your book, what is different between, because there have been books about stocks, but what makes yours different?
Well, I would say that, for one, like I said earlier, I take all the technical jargon out to make it easy to learn. I not only educate, I talk about mistakes that people make as well. So a lot of times you see books out here that just, give you kind of give you some history and some strategies, but they don't talk about how to learn. I think the true essence of learning is learning from other people's mistakes, right? So I talk about mistakes that people make when they start investing that you're not going to find on Google, right? Because they're not going to talk about anything negative. Everybody wants you to hear all the things that are positive, right? I dive into real strategies that you can use right now, and and not say, I see a lot of books out there that say, if you want more, buy this program, right? I don't believe in that fluff, right? I wanted us to write a book that people can use right now, that they can have success with, make money with, and just let's keep the funds going, right? I teach people how to get passive income from investing. And it's a 2021 edition as well. A lot of books out here are 2017, 2013. And as you know, that inflation, times change, things are different. So mine is a fresh perspective as well. And also like why me? I mean, my reviews speak for itself. I don't want to be like to sound like cocky or anything, but folks who've left reviews for my book on Amazon have really that to me says that I did my job, right? Because people, if it's bad, people will tell you. People will let you know. They have no problem with letting you know something is bad. Most people leave negative reviews, so to have as many reviews as I have now because my book's only be out. This is my third month. Says that I'm doing something right, which I'm definitely proud of, and I'm humbled by, if that kind of makes sense.
Wow. How was the process of writing the book?
It was tough. It was tough because sometimes you talk, but you can't write how you talk, right? Sometimes you don't know what the right word to use and things of that nature. So for me, you just I had to hire an editor, right, to kind of like go over my stuff and make sure that all my T's are crossed, all my I's are dotted, right? So that process was long, was tedious to come up with the right name, the right book cover. That was hard because you just can't make anything. You have to have something that's eye-catching, something that's going to sell. You have to have the right keywords in your book so that people can find your book on all different platforms. And it was a long process, but it was fun. It was fun. I had a blast doing it, even though it was stressful a lot of times.
Okay. With that being out there and your experience prior as a stockbroker, because there are a lot of people who they have no education and they're just opening up the Robinhood account anyway, and just, for lack of a better words, doing stuff. Would you recommend that people who are not educated enter into the market like that?
I wouldn't recommend you enter the market blindly, because I wouldn't recommend you enter anything blindly, right? So that's another reason why my book is available, like to get the education. And if you're not a reader, I have an Audible out as well. So to get the education and then rely on the education piece, because knowledge is power, but then also applied knowledge is power as well. So you want to not only learn it, right, you want to apply it, and you can apply it from the strategies that I have in the book. So I never recommend doing anything blindly without some type of knowledge, right? So even think about it like this, though. When we first got our license, we didn't just, most of us, right, didn't just get behind the wheel. You had to study the guide, right? So everything in life comes with a guide. That guide could be a person, a mentor, or it could be a book.
I wanted to get your opinion on this. A couple of months ago, there was a big controversy with a couple of stocks. AMC, what was the GameStop? That was actually the bigger one, and it was an interesting time. What was your thought when all that was going on, and did you get in?
I tell you, I loved it. It's like finally the little man, and that's why I titled my book. Well, my book was titled before that, but why should hedge funds have all the fun? These guys are out here making billions of dollars and stomping on the little guy, right? And they were shorting that stock. Shorting means that you're going to you want the stock to go down. You're making the stock go down purposely, right? So Robinhood and what was it? Reddit. Reddit was like, we're going to come together, group of people, and we're just going to buy the stock in massive amounts. So absolutely, I got involved. I made a whole bunch of money as well. So as you can see, the smile on my face from GameStop. I got in on AMC. I'm a little upset about AMC because I got in and I sold it at like 21. So I made money, but I'm like, I think it went to like that day when I sold it, I think it went up to 40, and then it went up higher than that. And I think it's hovering around in the 30s still. So so I'm a little upset that I missed out on more money, but you can't be greedy, right? A profit is a profit. So that was fun times. And I like how they did that.
Okay. Well, we want to make sure people are educated and that they're not going into these things blindly so that they could actually profit off of those things, because you could agree that most of the people who benefited off of that, they had some sort of knowledge of how to do those things.
Right.
So we really want to make sure this book gets in as many hands as possible. So how do we get access to your book?
Well, you get access to my book on Amazon right now, under books. It's how to make money in stocks. If you would just type that in, my book is on that first page, which is a good thing, right? Because that means people are seeing it, they're buying it, and Amazon likes it on the first page. So I like that as well. It will be available on Barnes & Noble and iTunes and Apple and all those other platforms. It just takes a process. It's a process that I have no control over. I've submitted it back in June. As you see, it's August right now, so I'm anticipating my book being in Barnes & Noble within the next 30 days. But I have e-books available, paperbacks. Like I said, the Audible is available, and then once it's available on Barnes & Noble, it'll be available in the hardback as well. So I'm excited for that one as well.
Okay. And do you have any parting words or last words for anyone who's kind of on the fence about getting into the market at this time?
Well, it's anything. With anything, some people see the market as gambling. I don't see it like that. I see it as investing, because when you gamble, you either win money or you lose money, right? When you're investing for the right reasons. Now, I have a Facebook group, Far Reach Investments, and I post trades on there where you hold that position for a day or maybe a week or maybe a couple of days or to a week, and you make money. That's more on the gambling side, because you can lose, but you can make a significant amount of money fast, right? But for the savvy investor, I would say the risk adverse investor, right? Which most people are, especially if you are just now getting into it, you're kind of new, you kind of want to get into investing, but you really don't know what to do. First step would be to buy, purchase my book. Second step was, follow the steps in there, which is like, look for long-term stuff, like companies that you really are excited. I always start off by spending money where I shop, right? I shop at Target. I buy stock in Target. Costco, you spend money at Costco. I have Apple products, then I invest in Apple, right? Because I know that if I put money in that, 20, 30 years from now, I'm going to make money because I'm in it for the long term, right? So I'm not looking for a get rich quick stock, right? Now I am, right? But you might not be. But so you can get into solid companies, like a Tesla, things of those nature, like, so Microsoft and Peloton, like if you buy those, what is it called? A Peloton bike, get the stock, right? If you believe in the company. So that's what I would say. You would definitely get stuff that you believe in, stuff for the long term. So if you're on the fence, just utilize, read the book, get the knowledge, utilize the strategies, and take a chance, right?
But there we have it. Fred Green, author of How to Make Money in Stocks. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.